What is up, grinders? Welcome to a UFC 289 special for Crunch Time MMA. I am your host, Mike Brown, aka H3 Buddha, here with my pal that wishes there was 14, 15 fights.
18
Blender.
fights, 27
18
fights.
Oh, well, what you really want, Blender, is like a PFL, UFC, Bellator weekend. Endless
Right,
fights.
put them all together. Put 34 fights on the slate. That's fine. Let's do it.
Why not? Make sure you guys are sharing this, telling a friend to tune in for this awesome show. We're going to go over the kind of, how to build some lineups for this slate. There's still some prize pools out there, Blender. The high roller stuff is not filled yet that's out there. Most of the GPPs have, but what do you think of the card overall? And another fight, another Mexican. Hey, another Mexican fighter. Last time I was on this show, you weren't on the show yet, Blender. You weren't on the show yet. But I was able to say, hey, Alexa Grasso could do it. I'll give my thoughts on that in a few because totally different context of slate.
No, this slate sucks for DFS. I mean, just brutally honest. If you're watching it now and you have a chance to withdraw, maybe that's the best thing you should do. I mean, you're watching this. I don't know. Should I be promoting that? It's because the two contextual variables we should be looking at when building our lineups, especially for large field GPPs, because we're looking to build lineups with less duplication. We want to win 200,000 to ourselves, or fine, if we want to share it with 3 or 4 other people, that may be fine also, but not with 20, 30, 80, 144 people. So we look at the two contextual variables of what the nut lineup will more probably or less probably look like. The two contextual variables, one is the size of the card. The bigger the card, the more options there are, which means there's more combinations available. So on smaller cards, there's not that many options, and the opportunities to score 100 plus points go down because there are less fighters. So the smaller the slate, we lean a little bit more towards win probability for fighters than ceiling outcomes. Okay, on a 15-fight card, some $7,100 fighter or something puts up 68 points. Like, quite unlikely that will be in the nut lineup. But on an 11-fight card, that probability goes up. And then we also look at the spreads of the fights, right? How wide the lines are. On a card where a lot of pick'ems means that they're more likely to be more underdogs that could win, which means that the salary for the nut lineup could be lower and lower. And we all know when it comes to duplication that a lot of people tend to spend most of their salary. So when the nut lineup is more and more likely to be 48,000, 48.5, something like that, number one, playing those lineups are about similar win probability as the 49.8 lineups, and they're going to be less duplicated. But that isn't this slate. This slate features 5 fighters that are at least 2-1 favorites, right? We got 5 fighters that have a 70+% win probability. Mike Malott is at 68%, so that's close. Mid-range, obviously, there's some pick'em fights, but for the most part, most likely there'll be more favorites that win on this slate than underdogs, which means that the nut lineup is more likely to spend more of its salary, and then you get the perfect storm. Much less options, 11-fight card, and nut lineup is more likely to spend more of its salary. You're going to run into a lot of duplication. So that's the main reason why I didn't put much volume down on this in comparison to what I would normally do. I'm playing 50 lineups, not all of them in the 200K contest. I'm playing 30 in there, and then 20 sprinkled around the $5 one, the $8 one, the $3 haymaker, 20 max, and going from there, because finding lineups that are under 5 dupes much harder this slate. But the combinations that are going to be much more duplicated are quite obvious.
Oh, they are. There's some pretty obvious builds out there on this slate. And yeah, it's amazing when you get first. Not amazing when you have to split it with like 150 people at all. It's not
just
fun.
the EV. It's like would you rather play a lineup that, when you win, you get $6,000, or when you win, you get $66,000? I mean, both those lineups are about equal to each other. Just one is much more duped. So you want to avoid those lineups.
Absolutely.
So don't play NUNES and Malott together. Don't play new. To me,
I'm not.
I made a group, Mike. In my
Yeah.
50 lineups, I have max one of Nunes, Malott, and Charles Oliveira.
Smart. It's a smart play because that's
And
going to be right where the ownership is.
if that exact combination of all three are the nut lineup, like it's going to be split 200 ways. So it's like I'm not going to win those slates. But
Yeah.
when the nut lineup only contains one of them or none of them, when I win, it's going to be split like 3 or 4 ways, and I come home with $80,000, $90,000. I'll take that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We'll get into the context in each tier of fighters and everything. Malott is really one of those cases that's like this guy is gonna be super high owned, and he's still relatively new. Blender. This show is sponsored by FanDuel. You can sign up for FanDuel Sportsbook in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. There are some underdogs that are definitely live. Like you spoke of the Oliveira that's going to get a ton of ownership. But if I had like a free bet to fire, I'd probably fire on a crazy underdog or something like that on this slate because you can get a lot more money on it. And the other way you can be unique.
I'm not fit, Mike. I'm not really a big fan of the dogs based on my metrics, based on my odds
ceilings
sheet.
Ceilings or win.
Both, maybe. I mean, more of the chances of them being, in an optimal lineup. Obviously, I'm playing for DFS purposes, not for betting purposes. Mm-hmm. But in comparison, comparing ownership to projection to ceiling to all the betting lines, like my ratings are not. I mean, the ownership is reasonably efficient. There are some cases where there are a few people that are a little bit overowned. There are cases where some are a little bit underowned. But there's nothing that stands out as like a dramatic edge of like, wow, this guy is dramatically underowned or this guy's dramatically overowned. So like the lineups that I'm building, that's hence why I played less volume, is that I don't see I could probably build 500 lineups. They're about the same as one another as far as an EV standpoint. And it's just that I'm not going to play 500 lineups. And to avoid duplication, once you start taking out Nunes, Malott, Charles Oliveira, like there's not that many ways that you can go. So
I'm crazy.
There's no single person on. I have the most overowned fighter on the slate is Jasmine Jasudavicius, but she's not that overowned. It's just that she's plus 1,200 inside the distance at 20. I have her at projected on to 20%. Mm-hmm. And can she win against Miranda Maverick? Sure, I guess so. But I'm not sure if even 70 points is going to do it.
Belbita is going to be a lot higher than 25. She's just that money line minus 140. All the money's been on her through the week. She's going to be a lot higher. But I'll tell you something, Blender. That fight is going to be ugly. And how many times do I tell you guys ugly is good or bad for fantasy purposes? This is one of the cases where anything is possible, Blender. The first fight of the night, you're going to know if one of these ladies puts up, hell, if they put up 95, you're going to probably be like a little bit concerned if you fade it.
Aren't they both fighting for contracts? I mean, these girls are awful.
Oh, they're terrible. But Maria Oliveira was on a reality show just like last week or the week before. Like
during her training camp?
Yes. She joined a Brazilian reality show, got kicked off right away and was like, oh, I got to get back into camp. It's okay. I got kicked off. She was potentially going to pull out of the fight just to stay on the reality show. That's the reality of the situation.
We don't have confirmation of that.
It was MMA fighting.
Oh, really? Really? She was considering pulling out of the fight to stay on the reality show?
Yes. So
that doesn't bode well. Devin's in the chat saying reality TV projection boost. I think it's the opposite.
It's interesting because MMAfighting.com did say she joined the show during the 289 camp. So like she was in the camp on the reality show, got kicked off on the first round. So yeah, first fight of the night. So but back to the realistic fantasy side of this. I think this is one of the more interesting ones because either of these ladies could blow the slate up with grappling, low percentage armbar. the realm of possibilities in this one, Blender, are all over the place, right?
Yeah, but the most likely, I
But-
mean, with the ITD lines being this high, the most likely occurrence is that it's going to go to the scorecards and be a split decision.
And I agree. Well, I agree 100%. Like some weird decision. We are in Canada. You're gonna see at least one bad decision. It happens all the time, and it
Aren't
might
the
not
same
even.
judges from last week's Albazi Cara France fight doing the main event tonight also?
Yeah, Chris Lee is our favorite friend.
What
Chris Lee.
happened last week? What was that?
I don't. Was he minus 600 closing at the?
I'm just saying, didn't Chris Lee had like round 4 to Albazi, and like that was like the clearest Kai Cara
taken
France
down
round there
twice?
was?
Yeah.
Oh,
but there's guaranteed.
But talking about the main event.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about, you know, Oliveira, Belbita, you know, the reality show or the whatever. Do you believe you're the unbeatable women's MMA fighter whisperer, right? Because
I don't want this. I don't want the pressure.
You've been calling Shevchenko to lose at any point, and you obviously won a ton of money on Grasso that slate.
I'll explain.
There's not. I mean, we're not painting a picture that people don't realize that Amanda Nunes is not the same. I'm not even talking about the same fighter physically. I'm just mentally. She had a baby. She's getting older. She's probably she's coming close to retirement, whether or not she loses before then or not. Typically in these Nunes fights, I mean, she would be a minus 1,000 favorite over almost anyone.
Mm-hmm.
She's only minus 320.
But they
today.
got burned by the Valentinas thing. Well, I mean, they probably made a ton of money off the parlays, but regardless, they're a little bit more wise to things now, Blender. And here's the thing: Nunes has had a issue with her nose. I think it's like one of those deviated septum or something to that effect, right? And she's been talking about it for a while, fights before, and it's like eventually that was going to catch up to her, like cardio wise, because it can't be easy to push through.
That's always been her concern. I mean, like she lost to Juliana Pena because she flamed out after one round. The question is Irene Aldana the fighter to beat her? Because you have to think, Mike, that if Nunes is smart, which she tends to fight smart, that she just wrestle Aldana because she has such a dramatic advantage on the ground. But if this stays on its feet, this line is too wide.
It is way too wide when it's on the feet. And both ladies probably have similar power. Nunes is going to have the edge in like pure one-hitter quitter power, but Aldana could have volume, right, that adds up over 3 or 4 rounds. Here's the thing. It's the same exact type of situation as Alexa Grasso. 3rd, 4th, 5th round finish for Aldana. That's where her bread and butter should be, right? But I don't think I'd be even surprised if she hurt Nunes in the 1st or 2nd round either. I'm not calling it. I am by no means saying
but
Aldana
it's live.
upset.
It's not like live. I mean, truthfully, in the Nunes Pena fight that Pena won, like I barely had any. I think I had 2 lineups out of 100 with Pena because Nunes was such a big favorite then, and it's like, okay, it's Amanda Nunes. Like Aldana has Aldana has a shot. Aldana has a shot at winning by decision. I mean, like I look at 6,700 and go, this stays on its feet for a full 5 rounds. Would I be shocked with a 48-47 Aldana split decision? Like if Amanda Nunes decides I'm just going to wrestle, I think she'll look like a minus 1,000 favorite. But if she doesn't, I mean, I really don't think that it should be a 9,500, 6,700 fight.
And even at like, think of the builds that Aldana will allow people to go to Blender. First of all, you get the leverage, insane leverage against Nunes if she were to finish. The builds you can do is anything. You literally have dealt an open hand and saying, here you go, you can get the Malats of the world. You can get the Igays, right? But it's hard.
It's not going to be that low owned, Mike. I mean, I have her at 19% owned. So it's not like you're getting a 5% owned fighter. I mean, she's still going to be owned.
Yeah, earlier in the week, it was lower than 10%, but that's not going to happen. And
right.
What about the possibility? I mean, I would be really shocked if that fight busts. That's my problem. It is somewhat important.
No. I would be shocked if that fight, but if Nunes wins in the 3rd round, right?
The top control and this little, you know,
this thing, oh, you're giving me the
this
whole pitter
thing,
patter crap.
That's what's going to add up. That's the problem.
Who said she immediately goes to that? What if she wins in the third round after standing and trading? We're screaming, going, Nunes, take her down, take her down. Then in round 3, she takes her down and submits her, and she's sitting there with 78 points, and it's like, possible. Okay, for 9,500.
Yeah, I just think the pace is going to be there. Like either went slow, the other person's going to take over and push the pace. But it's like
the buzz to me. The fight with the most buzz potential that for its ownership is the Dariush Oliveira fight.
Love it, love that call. You and I couldn't be more on the same page. I am more up to not play that fight because of so much ownership. But it's like, what's the fight like under? Let me look up the under on that fight while I'm here.
Isn't it like minus 350 to end inside the distance total?
Yes, in like 1.5.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anyone scores well. I mean, like, dude, Dariush, look at him beating Gamrot. It's not like he scored well. Like, Oliveira only scores, if you take a look at his lane logs, he only scores well in early submissions. Like, he's really an early submission or bust fighter for DFS purposes, because a lot of times he's on his back getting no points, right?
Charles?
Yeah, Charles. Yeah, that's what I'm just saying.
And he gets hurt every single fight, Blender.
Right. But the thing is, for this fight, and I'm saying this, and Charles Oliveira, Dubronx, is my favorite UFC fighter, right? I've only been watching seriously for 3 years, but he's my favorite fighter. I have the least of him today because you see all the fights where Oliveira does get quick submissions, or, you know, even after getting hurt. It's against these guys that seriously don't have much of a not as much of a ground game. Against Makhachev, he has no chance. Like, his biggest weapon, Oliveira's biggest weapon, is that when he gets hurt, he could flop to his back and no one wants to go down with him. The problem is that, like, Makhachev doesn't give a shit, right? I mean, he'll I don't think Darius cares
Benny
either.
Might either. Yeah, Benny might not care. He's just
right. He might not care. I think it's weird to say. I think Oliveira actually has the advantage on the feet. But not necessarily on the ground from a grappling perspective. Now, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, there's no one. I mean, Charles Oliveira will have the jiu-jitsu advantage over any fighter in that division's history, probably. So, like, yes, but Oliveira is much more dangerous on top to get than on his back when it comes to DFS. I'm only thinking DFS purposes. If Oliveira wins in the second round, I don't see him scoring well because he doesn't really rack up points.
He might not even have a good first round. Whatever the case may be, it might be difficult for him to pay off. You talk about fun fighters. We'll pivot right to probably the most fun fighter on the whole slate outside of Oliveira, Nate Landwehr. That dude's crazy. Now, I don't know if you see the writing on the wall like I do, but this guy fights so crazy, and this is the step up, right? This is the ticket. Here you go, Nate. This is your chance to crack like a top 10, to get in there. But this is the spot that I see him just like running too far, like being a little bit too reckless. Dean Ige catches him. Quick win bonuses in play.
Now I have Nate Landwehr projected owned to be 24%, and I have him as the second most over-owned fighter.
Agree.
On the slate. I have way more Ige. I mean, Ige is my second highest exposed fighter on the slate.
Isn't he the most frustrating?
I thought you were going to talk about Malott and Fugget.
No.
Right, we can talk about that next. But I think people are going to look at Landwehr's last results and go, okay, you could, and they'll also say, well, he could wrestle or whatever. Like Landwehr, the difference between who he was fighting and Dan Ige is much different. Landwehr has almost no striking defense. He'll just run it. I mean, he'll either knock someone out or run into a fist, and I think it's more likely he runs into a fist than anything else.
Herbert Burns, who is a jiu-jitsu guy, knocked him out in his first fight. Like, yeah, he can get knocked out, and when he's knocked out, it's the first round too. So Ige is a frustrating fighter, though, Blender. You have to keep in the back of your mind, he can get negated for a round or two sometimes in his fights, and when they go to a decision, they are usually pretty damn close. I don't necessarily see that fight going to a decision, but I do think contextually that's an important one. Well, I'll go right to your guy, Mike Malott, because he's not my guy. No,
he's not my guy, Mike.
Well, your fight.
My fight.
You're fine. You're fine. Because I think that range is important. I put fighters in ranges. Ige, Builder, Malat. Getting those fighters are imperative for your lineups this week. Ceiling,
I think it's quite
leverage,
possible, Mike.
you
In
name it.
all 50 lineups, I have
Yeah.
at least one of Ige, Builder, or Milan.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And Malat's going to be, you said, higher than 45. We're showing 45.
I have his
right?
projected ownership at 45. I have him as a fish, like only because he's minus 138 inside the distance at 8,800. Like you got to pay attention to that. I mean, that's it is what it is. But just realize this guy is like fought for like what 18 minutes inside the cage. I mean, the 8 fights, they're all ending early, and Adam Fugit like is not a bad is really not bad. He's not good, but he's not bad. But we've not seen like if this fight goes five minutes, like what does Mike Malott look like? Like we don't know. Like we really don't. Now, if he wins, he's more likely to win in the first 5 minutes, which that's why like that's 90 to 100 point. Like hello, that's why you kind of have to have some Mike Malott. But I think the leverage with Adam Fugit, especially Fugit, is could at least match the grappling. I think it's much more likely that if Malott, gasses out in 5 minutes, that Fugit wins the decision, but like dominates the second and third round on the ground and still ends up to 7,400 with like 90 to 100 points. So like to me, my favorite, my most exposed underdog on the slate is Adam Fugit.
That's great.
But I'd still have plenty of Mike Malott. It's not like I still have like 30% Mike Malott, but I have a little bit more of Fugit.
Is Fugit's got a decent inside the distance line too? I mean, you're talking about like a
right. Which I'm saying Fugit. Is it Fugit? I don't want to say fuck it and then like all of a sudden we're off of YouTube.
Fuck it. No, you can say fuck it. It's
fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it. He's fuck it. Play him, right?
Yeah, fuck it. I don't know what the closed captions on YouTube are gonna turn that into.
Mike Malott, though, here's the thing. He is one of the question marks on the whole slate blender because, like you said, first round finishes galore. What does he look like? Maybe he looks like $1 million. You know that site that has picks? It was 1.5 takedowns for Malott. And that under, blender. The under got hit so hard, they just said, fuck it, we're taking it off the board.
I got it before then.
Yeah, and
so they took it off of prize. Have they taken it off of prize picks?
Off the board. Gone.
Okay, because I grabbed your under 1.5 Mike Malott takedowns and under 92.5 Dvorak fantasy points.
That's the gold. I like that one as well. Blake Builder, Kyle Nelson, all action fight. Nelson has game logs that are against him. People aren't going to want to play him. Blake Builder, in a ceiling win with grappling, could look like $1 million. He's got Blake Builder, of those three guys we talked about at 9K, has a path to scoring 3-round decision massive score. He has the ability to really open the slate up salary rise. And he can even, be 10, 20 points ahead of Mike Malott, if Mike Malott gasses out or whatever the hell happens in that fight. But are you going to play Kyle Nelson? This guy looks massive. He's down at 145 blender. He's not good. Hashtag not good. I think he's like 1-4 or something in his last 5 fights. But he could also be one of those guys in that range that we were talking about. It's just he's lower owned of the group. I don't hate it.
That much. I have him at 18. So it's not like it's not low. I mean, I agree with you with Builder. Builder as out of anyone on the slate to outscore Amanda Nunes, I have Blake Builder. He's my highest exposed fighter. I do obviously have some Nelson, but really Kyle Nelson's path to a lot of points is like just flailing and catching Bill. I mean, like he really has no game. Like he's not going to wrestle. He's gonna come with his hands down. He's gonna throw wild hooks. And if he connects, then he connects. And obviously Builder's making his UFC debut. So you have the jitters there and, the suspect, strength of schedule. But I don't think Kyle Nelson,
in Canada, they're not doing him a favor, that's for sure, against a hot prospect in Builder.
Well, maybe they thought he was doing against it. I don't think Builder's a hot prospect. They were doing him as much of a favor as possible. But yeah, I mean, It's quite possible on this slate that all the Canadians lose.
Agree. And here's the thing. This is a fight that there's two fights, Imavov and Barrios. Those two fights are finish dependent. I think you and I can probably agree with that. But the problem is there could be multiple knockdowns. This thing, like, Anders is going to be a popular underdog, and that's friggin' terrifying to me because I'm concerned about being underweight. The dude does throw. He doesn't seem people are saying, oh, he's way more athletic than Barrios. I think they're closer to the same athleticism. And like Barrios,
Anders has some of these fights where he just doesn't do enough.
Exactly. But like for fantasy wise, he could win a decision that looks good and still score 65 points.
Right.
And that's not enough on this slate, even though there's 11 fights. Now, the Imavov thing, that's the interesting play on the slate for me from like a second tier or like one that I'm not going to jam into my lineups. It's because Chris Curtis has been fighting so much, Blender. We're talking about Chris Curtis, who every other week is in a fight, it seems. And he got, what was the headbutt last time? Remember the headbutt that cost him the fight against, oh my God, I can see him. The Mexican guy, Kelvin Gastelum. A tough fight, close fight on the metrics, but he just doesn't fight all that smart either. So I could see Imavov clipping him twice, knocking him down twice, but it's hard to click him. 8,500, he still has to get there, right? Like, how are you handling that fight in particular, Imavov?
I'm lower on both fighters. I mean, that's
strikers.
To me, the ceilings of that fight compared to the ownership. Mm-hmm. The fight that I'm actually interested in.
No.
I think it's be the low owned fight.
It's ugly, man. That's ugly.
I know this guy is the death of DFS scoring, but one I'm in Zahabi. Okay, I know. It's disgusting.
Somebody
the way
had to
that
throw up
Arichi
emoji.
Lang, you have to admit, Mike, that the way the Arichi Lang fights, he's a zombie. Like this guy gets hit like 700 times every fight and just doesn't go down. If he's going to be, if Arichi Lang is going to be much more aggressive, like it's very hard for Zahabi to win decisions because he just doesn't, he just sucks the life out of fights. But who says that he's plus 450 inside the distance, which is high. He has a better inside the distance line than Nate Landwehr. Okay. And people are playing Nate Landwehr. Who says Arichi Lang does just run into a punch? And Zahabi does have power. It's just that he only throws 28 punches a fight. So like it's hard to bank on him.
He's
and
not
I think
your prototypical
out of the
guy.
mid-range, he's going to be the lowest owned fighter there.
Yeah, we're under a minute before lock here. We've been talking your ear off, but it's like I could see a Kiri Lang also, Blender, before this thing locks. I could see this dude just getting like 3 takedowns around. Control time.
You mean on the Arichi Lang side?
Yeah, like
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
You don't think so? I don't see
him grappling them. But I mean,
I could see him grind on him. Well, the thing about Zahabi too, decision making. He walked into a spinning elbow twice in one fight too, where guy threw it, missed. He went right back to it and walked right into the spinning elbow. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're starting the fight night off with Maria Oliveira, Diana Belbita, Blender. I mean, I'm underweight and terrified on that. I mean, I have Belbita.
And looking forward to a low-level women's MMA, 100-point score that comes out of nowhere.
So you don't play Showdown, right? Because
no,
I see myself.
Mode. It's called Captain Mode.
Yeah. Sorry. Captain Mode. I can see myself tilting that first fight and going straight to the Showdown Captain Mode on that after this one. But next week we do have a 14-fight slate, Blender, Vittori versus Cannonier, and it should be a good one. There are some decent fights on that one. They're just rolling the same product out there, Blender, time and time again, watered down fights. But again, this
give me a lot of them. Give me 14 or 15 of them a week, and I'll be happy. I don't care if they're horrible.
Yeah. And you'll watch them too. Like I'm happy. You broke down some X's and O's today, Blender, that I was really proud of you about. Like, I
watched the fights. I watched all the cards.
I watched
PFL the other night. I watched even that.
Wow. And we need DFS for it. Remember, the broadcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in a legal sports betting state, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Blender, good luck on the first fight. No cancellations. None. They're not happening. We'll see you guys next week.